You're listening to the AntPod Debate Edition.
Thank you for the introduction, Lexi, and hello and welcome to the AntPod debate about slave maker ants. Before we start, I want to say that this podcast can also be heard as an audio version only. Link will be shown in the description. Today we're sitting with Jake from Antimatter's, Casey from, Casey, who's CT Ants, and Ninoturu, aka Lynn. And today we're talking about slave maker ants. Now, to just explain what a slave maker ant is, it's basically that you capture a queen, and this queen will lay eggs and get her first workers and all of this. That's a normal queen. And then we have the slave maker ants, who parasitic ants is another word for them. This parasitic queen will fly up, mate, and then she will land, and then she'll find a colony and kill the queen and take over this entire colony. That's quite a brief look. Of course, we're going to go a lot more into details because, as I just realized from Jake saying it before we started, there's a few different ways that they work. But of course, you can also keep these parasitic ants in your own setups, and that's also something we're going to be discussing today. Jake, you said you had you knew a few different ways that they work. Can you just explain that?
Yeah, well, you got your slave makers, which, well, there's a couple versions of that. You got some versions where, like, a newer queen that's the parasitic species will go in, and then there's kind of the option, like, do they kill the queen or do they keep her alive? So you got your standard, like, formicas, they love to just kill the queen, basically. But you do get, like, the odd little species where they'll let the other queen live, like my Strongylanaphis. So you have two queens, and basically in this colony, the little queen, which is the Strongylanaphis parasitic queen, using her pheromones, she turns off the main queen's ability to lay elate pupae. So all the elate pupae that come out of this colony will always be Strongylanaphis. Well, pretty much always, anyway. Some might slip through. But you also got other kind of little niches, which I don't know, you could probably consider some thief ants as parasitic ants, because some of them literally will just live off the other colony like a tick. And there are some more methods. I'm just trying to remember some. But yeah, come back to me with that one.
It's funny.
There's 3 of them at least.
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't actually thought of fugax as slave makers, but I guess they do steal the brood. Although, do they steal the brood? Don't they just steal the brood to eat it?
Yeah, but I guess it's still kind of like parasitic, isn't it? And then you also got the ones that will steal the brood as well and use that for themselves too. And they won't actually kill the colony; they'll just nick all of the brood. Yeah,
and I think just for all of those who are with a phone available or something, I would highly recommend this video called "The Horror of the Slaver Ant," made by the YouTube channel called Kurzgesagt. I don't know if you guys have seen the video, but it's a brilliant video. They have done a lot of ant videos, which is actually quite nice.
Great animation.
Yeah, I was about to say they have some lovely animations. But yeah, so if you are with a phone nearby, be sure to go in and save that to see later. It's called "The Horror of the Slaver Ant" by Kurzgesagt. Lynn, have you kept any slave maker ants or parasitic ants?
I think I've tried to keep Lasius fuli. I'm not going to say the whole name because I will butcher that. But Lasius fuli and Lasius umbratus, I've always tried to keep those two. Formica fusca, I've kept for a little bit, but never for long. And the umbratus and fuli, I always fail to start. They never make it past their diapause.
Right, so you introduce the host workers, or how long do you make, or how long in this process do you come?
I try a lot of different methods. With the umbratus, I always I brood boost them with callow workers and with pupae, and then that will all go well. And then she has her own brood, and those will stay larvae until after the diapause. But the queen always dies during the diapause, so that's usually what happens.
All right. Yeah, I've done a little bit of the same. I've tried Umbratus quite a few times, and I have never got an Umbratus worker, but I have successfully added them quite a few times, both with. So there's a few different ways of doing it, but basically the common way is to go out and find, if we take Lasius Umbratus, to find a wild Lasius niger colony, and during hot summer days, they will often just put all of their pupae, the cocoons, right under a rock. And if you lift the rock, you can get a lot of these cocoons without actually damaging the colony. People also go out and dig up the colonies. I personally don't like that because it disturbs them a lot more than simply just lifting a rock. But then you grab these cocoons and you simply attach it to the test tube or you put them in the test tube where you have your Umbratus queen. That is one of the ways. And then the queen will have to. But the problem is, the queen may not unbox or enclose these pupae. And that's also why people also recommend adding in some workers with the brood. Now, as far as I've seen, the thing is, in the wild, they go out. Now, you guys, please correct me if I'm wrong. But as far as I've understood, they go out and they kill an Lasius niger worker, and Umbratus queen kills the worker, and kind of rubs the smell or the scent of the Lasius niger colony around herself. And I've seen them actually going out killing these workers, so that's why I'm quite sure that's how it works. And then they intrude the colony and ends up going down and fighting with the queen. Now in captivity, you attach it to make sure that the queen is unharmed. You can cool the Lasius niger workers by putting them in the fridge for 10 minutes. That way they will be a little bit more confused, and the queen can either go over and kill one worker and bathe in the scent, or just not fight at all. In my trials, I've seen them kill one worker almost every time, and then accept the other workers. And then the other worker starts enclosing the larvae and or the pupae and all of that. But with Umbratus, I have not made it past larvae stage either. But with the Lasius fully, which I call fuliginosis, which is probably wrong, I got two workers of fuliginosis workers, and then the queen died. I'm going to come a little bit more into that later. But Jake, have you tried keeping parasitic ants? I guess you do.
Yeah, I've got my Strongylonaphis testicius or whatever, something like that. I think that's it as well.
You haven't tried Umbratus or anything?
They're great. No, not yet. But I am keeping an eye on my Formica fusca, and I am thinking eventually I might get a Formica sanguini or something to go with them, because I know that the Formica fusca, they're really good supplies for all of the parasitic Formicas.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny. So for those OG fans, Lynn maybe have heard this. Before I made the Antpod, I co-hosted in, or before the Antpod was a thing, I co-hosted in, what is it called? The Colonial Antcast. And back then, we talked about how to make a nest to very easily get the brood without hurting the colony, and who'd had a good idea. And today, Wakushiev just solved the problem. Because if you have a Saturn, you can simply disconnect the tube with brood, and that way you don't harm the colony at all. I don't know how your fuscas are. I think the fuscas are in a Saturn, right?
Yep, Saturned up. Kind of when I saw the Saturn and put the fusca together, it was like, this is perfect. Like one day I'm definitely going to raid you.
Yeah, it's the perfect match for these colonies. So how did you manage to get the other parasitic colony? The things I don't know what's called. How did you manage to put them together?
Basically, I just bought them together from Antantic, so I didn't have to worry about that. But I think in nature, it just happens quite a lot as well. I've heard maybe like 1 in 10 colonies or something.
Oh, that's quite fascinating. All right, and what about you, Casey? What have you tried parasitic ants?
I've caught one, but I was about to, and I decided to not sacrifice one of my Formica colonies. I'm assuming this Formica I caught was parasitic because it was a really deep red and it almost looked like Neorufia barbus, but it wasn't. So I'm not really sure if it was parasitic or not. It looked parasitic. I don't know how to explain that, but Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to sacrifice one of my Formica colonies.
No, and I think that's one of the big things for new innkeepers. I've faced myself with the same problem a few times. Got myself a flowers or Umbratta's queen, and then I look at all my nightjares and I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do before I just go out and grab some wild ones? So I don't know how well you guys are educated. Lynn, you are usually quite familiar within these. Have you heard like the correct way, or what is the method that you've heard regarding how to found the colony in the best way?
In captivity?
Yeah.
Well, most people always recommend to grab callows and pupae, and that they either suggest wild colonies or indeed, if you have them, from a big captive colony. The callows
And-
are workers that have not hardened their shells yet, so they are really docile and they don't attack the queen, and they nearly don't carry any scent. So the queen, the parasitic queen, really easily makes them her own.
That's actually really smart because then the workers harden up and then they can start doing the work without having any problems. That's brilliant, actually. Yeah. So how would you then introduce them? Would you put them in a outworld, or how would you mix it all up?
I think they usually, because the callows don't really know what's going on. The callows and the pupae really don't know what's going on, but they either they put an outworld with a tube in it, and the queen can just go peacefully inside the tube on her own terms if she wants to, or they just yeet the queen inside of the tube and let it all happen, I guess.
Yeah, I've tried both things, and I would say within my trials, it works best. I've just had them in two separate test tubes, taped them together, and let them do the magic. And the day after, they would all be in one of the two test tubes. So that's what I've tried. And for all of those thinking, because that's also something I've thought myself. What happens if you don't get the parasitic queen any brood? Well, I kept mine at an outworld before. When I was a very, very new innkeeper, I didn't understand the terms of parasitic ants. So I gave her a tubs and tube setup, and she was never home. She was never in the test tube. She would always be running around trying to escape, and that is because in the nature, it's built into them that they had to hunt and find a colony to attack. So you need to give them this because else they will just die. I've also tried with Formica Sanguini, I think it's called. And I had 5 queens. I think all of them were infertile, but that's another story. They all died. That's also some of my very, very newbie ant things I did. So it's definitely a good idea if you see a queen to maybe. So what I do when I find a queen is that I don't know is I quickly contact people on Instagram to see if I can get an identification, and if it is a parasitic queen, maybe just set her free if you don't have a plan. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, Jake. Have you heard anything about how to start a parasitic colony?
Not really anything more than what Lynn said. Yeah. Yeah, not really that much at all, to be honest. I'm not sure too many people have really dabbled in it, but I would like to know.
Yeah, and that's why Ants Netherlands was invited today to join, but he was sadly on vacation and he had to be out today, so sadly he couldn't join. But Ants Netherlands, 19 now, right? He's a year older. He is the king of parasitic ants in my opinion. He's kept I think Formica rufa as well. And the thing with these parasitic ants is they work very slow. So he introduced them to Formica fusca workers the first year or something, and it took around an entire year before the queen actually laid her first batch of eggs, which is insanely slow to have an ant colony for 1 year without getting one egg. But as far as I could understand when I chatted with him, that was just normal and that's how it is. And I think what the reason my Formica Lasius fuliginosus queen died was because I did not follow his advice, because it was at the worst time of year, because I did not have. It was I had a bad time last year, and a lot of my ants sadly suffered from it, and I learned a lot. And I think that is also why my fuliginosus queen suffered, because she was supposed to be boosted yet again. There was around 10-15 Latius Niger workers and two of her own workers and a nice brood pile. But people online, especially Ants Netherlands, said I should brood boost them a lot more, so they would have like 30 to 50 workers. Which again, it would be lovely to have him, but he's not here. I don't know if you guys have anything to introduce or add to this topic right here.
I wouldn't mind asking. Well, I think Lynn, you might know. A Formica rufa glaucus. Are they like a parasitic species, or are they like normal?
Rufa glaucus?
Whatever they're called. Yeah, something like that.
Or do you mean the normal Rufa?
Yeah, like your European-y one. Like, I swear that you give it a different name though. Like,
No, we have Formica rufa and Formica polycynta. And those are both the formicas that make those giant heaps of stuff. And those are the protected species.
I've just
You
been
know?
watching that David Attenborough one, and he's like, he calls them like rufa glaucus, but they look like Formica rufa to me, and I'm like, what's Formica rufa glaucus? Like, yeah.
Yeah, those are indeed also parasitic. And attaching to the previous topic, I actually always recommend when people boost Parasitic Queen, and even more with the Formica rufas, and maybe even Formica sanguina. I'm actually not too familiar with that species yet, but I have one in my fridge. Oh god. You can boost them a little bit at first, and then you actually need to make sure that they will have at least 200 host workers to go with. That's the safe amount, because they will always look for a bigger colony to prey upon, so they feel safe. And when they feel safe, they start laying eggs sooner.
See, I thought Ants Netherlands also said something with 200, but I wasn't sure if I remembered my numbers. So it is that is just insane. That is insane. Oh yeah, now I remember. It's funny, Formica rufa are protected. There's a lot of places where they are protected, and I'm not sure whether they are in Denmark or not. But it's weird because we have. If I go to the forest where they live, there is like hundreds of mounds. I don't understand why they are protected. I mean, there's every time, as soon as I find one forest with the Formica rufa in, they own the forest. I don't see any other ants than Formica rufa for kilometers and kilometers. Yeah, exactly, miles and miles.
I totally get that.
It's strange that they're like protected.
Although I think over here they are protected, but it's kind of where they dominate. They do dominate, but then it's so sparse that these patches of like nice old forest, they're kind of a bit rare nowadays. And I guess it might just be a case of like, if you could protect one, you can protect the other as well.
Yeah,
I'd assume they're pretty common in like old growth forests. So like forests that haven't been disturbed by people very much, like no one's tried to cultivate it or like upgrade the land in any way. I would assume that's where the super colonies live.
That's where they do near me, yeah. Like the ones that haven't been touched for like 1,000 years and stuff, yeah. Like they love it in there. And it does make sense, I guess. And if you were land like interested in keeping the land safe or something, it would be like, what animal can we kind of get a protection status inside of this area?
Yeah,
I'm not totally sure, but I think there might be some, but I don't think Neo Rufia barbus builds giant mounds, or at least I can't find. I was on iNaturalist looking for some, and I don't think they build mounds in the U.S.
Well, the Rufia barbus is like the Rufy barbus, right? Those are not parasitic.
True, but yeah.
So they don't make mounds. They need to stay hidden.
Yeah, fair enough. Touche.
So that's a good point. That I did not think of it like that. That like these parasitic colonies, they don't have to stay hidden because they're the parasites. Whereas the ones that get parasiticized or whatever you call it, like I can never find their colonies because they're hidden. Like, yeah.
So I have a question. I don't know if you guys know. So Jake, of course, you just said that they were called Formica Rufa something in the Attenborough documentary, and in that documentary, I think it's the same like the Red Wooden Ant documentary he made. He's explained that some colonies live in war, and other times queen just fly out in and breed, and then land and go home again, creating super colonies. Do you know if it's the same species or if it's different species?
Oh, exactly the same species. Yeah, 100% the same species. I'm not sure why they do it, but I've seen them as well because they don't actually fly all the time. Sometimes they'll just walk to another nest and you'll see like massive golf ball sized kind of writhing masses of ants like traveling through the forest.
That's
And that'll
interesting.
be a fresh queen like heading back to the colony again after mating in like the neighbour's nest, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. I'm just searching Formica rufibargus. It's just called the red slave maker ant in Denmark.
I think when they do all that mound too, they're not really like inbreeding as well. It is just like you go to your neighbours and mate with them, and the neighbours will go to like the next neighbour along, but they're all kind of happy with each other, kind of coming and going.
Yeah, but the thing is, they have unlimited queens, and that's why they can fly out and mate and land on their own mount again, because it's not the same queen. Because there are maybe hundreds of queens down there, they have not been produced by the same queen, as far as I'm thinking at least.
Or it might be like I guess if you imagine you got like a giant soup of loads of smells, if you stay inside of the giant soup, you're gonna be safe inside of the big colony. But maybe some of them that do fly away, they've kind of left the soup of the smell, and they'll kind of get their own distinct smell from the mega colony, if you get what I mean. And then maybe problems of aggression like arise because it's like you are a weird smell now. Like,
Yeah. Just another question. Formica sanguini, are they slave makers or are they parasitic?
I think they're full blown slave makers. Or they killed a
Yeah,
queen.
yes. Yeah. That's the thing I don't understand, because at one time I caught sanguini or rufa and I couldn't tell what species they were. And some people were like, no, this species don't need slaves, and others were like, they need slaves. I think it's definitely something. The problem is here in Denmark that they are so common that a lot of people find them and ask me, should I keep the species? And I'm like, no, it's not beginner friendly. I still wouldn't consider them beginner friendly at all, just because they're so hard to find. But another ethical question. So I remember, I think Aesthetic Ants at one point talked about it, that he wanted to document the entire experience of a queen to actually go in and kill another queen. Now it's been years since he said that, so he may just have not decided to do it. But do you guys think it's changes anything to actually add a queen to another colony, or do you think it's a lot? It's better to just go with just adding the brood.
Definitely add in the brood, I'd say. However, like it would be cool, but once you to get a colony that you could send another queen in to steal, you'd probably get quite attached, and I don't know, it wouldn't be very nice, to be honest. Like I can't see it being a very fun experience watching this colony you raised for a year get kind of beaten up.
No.
You'd have to do it with the mindset the entire time. Like it would be an awful time, because it'd be hard to keep yourself from being like, oh, but I actually care about this colony that I'm going to sacrifice.
Yeah, I thought of buying a queen at one point. I buying a colony just to sacrifice it, but no, I couldn't do it. It's too wrong in my own head.
I think I could handle it if I caught both queens at the same time. I think I could handle it, but outside of that, I think I'd go out of my way to get brood.
Yeah. Lynn?
There's also no guarantee that your parasitic queen will actually make it if you do this.
No, and you can also lose the queen of the other colony, so you just lose two queens in one go. Definitely,
It could absolutely be a lose-lose situation.
Yeah. Yeah, so to try to make a plan, what would you guys say would be if we take the Lasius gene again, because it seems Lasius is, at least in Europe, one of the common things you find, which you can keep without having to interfere with any laws. What would you guys say is the best way to do the first year with Lasius umbratus, starting with Yulen?
Wait, can you ask again?
What
I
what
got
would you say?
distracted.
No worries. What would you say is the best way to start the first year of keeping Lasius umbratus queen? What would you do?
Well, you need to make sure, of course, that you have hosts, pupae or workers or callows to help the queen. And I don't think Umbratus and Fulicanosus and actually most of the others, they don't have much reserves. So you need to make sure that the colony you use as host are nice, large adult workers, or at least that they will have adult workers over time, so they can store some of the food or juices that you give them, so they can make sure that the queen stays healthy and well fed. Because that might actually be the reason that most of mine died during diapause, because I don't feed my ants often during diapause, and I think they just die because they're out of food. That might be a thing. Might be a thing. Yeah, and other than that, just keep calm. They are not that well known to be kept, or at least you don't see many big colonies, so I think it's hard, pretty hard.
Definitely agree on that. Not. I don't think I've ever seen a big colony in captivity, but I haven't looked for it either. And would you just add 200 brood straight from the beginning?
No. I would, or at least if you have it, you could. But I would go with a little bit of workers first, or callows, or maybe 2 callows and some pupae, so the workers can take care of the other, the pupae for a bit. And then if you have those 10 all awakened up and actually clean and accepting the queen and everything is nice, you can add on some more brood.
Hi, it's Lexi from Pour More Art. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ant Pod, and please visit my ant and spider shop at www.pourmoreart.ca. We're a Canadian business shipping ant and spider keeping supplies worldwide, specializing in test tube accessories and a variety of hybrid formicaria, glass outrolls, and enclosures. Enjoy the show.
And again, for those who are thinking of looking out in the wild for brood, what you need to do is wait till it's like a. So when it rains, of course, the soil gets wet and the ants generally go a little bit down in the down underground because the water gets sucked up by all the roots and all of this. But if you have like a heat wave or if you have many hot days, the ants will generally be right under the rocks and storing all of their pupae because that's where they develop the fastest. And what I tend to do is not these small rocks that is only a few centimeters, but if you have like a good brick size rock, like a 10 by 10 or something, and if you lift that, you will be sure, if you know there's an active colony under, you'll be sure to find some good colonies. What I often do is go around, so out on the countryside in Denmark, you can find these gravel parking lots, and on these gravel parking lots, you will often find some, I don't know, some rock barriers on the wall, on the sides, to make sure that the cars don't drive off the parking lot. And if you just flip these massive rocks, they're quite heavy, but you'll see the ants right under a lot of times. That is the safe way I've done it multiple times. But of course, you can also go out and dig up a colony. But in my eyes, that is something I would like to avoid at all costs, at least. I don't know if you guys have anything, if you have any different opinions on this.
Not a different opinion, but I was doing some research because I know I have Neo Niger and you guys have Lasius Niger. So I decided to look up if the US has Umbratus, and we do.
Oh, that's nice. Something that's native,
all
or
I got.
Are they native to you?
Yeah, actually, I guess they're native pretty much across the entire northern hemisphere.
That's cool.
Weird. I guess they got another species that they were like parasitic of before. Maybe I guess you got like different Lasius over there.
We have Neo Niger and like 9 or 10 other species of Lasius.
So another thing I find quite interesting is whenever I had my Fuliginosis queen, I added Lasius niger workers, and a lot of people were like, Fuliginosis need to get Umbratus, and Umbratus needs to get it from the Lasius niger. So you have to do this kind of step ladder to get the workers. I don't know if with you, but I don't quite understand why this is. Have you heard anything scientifically about it?
The Lasius niger workers usually do not understand Fuliginosis brood, so they might not care for the larvae, or they just forget to open the pupae, while Umbratus actually does that successfully.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that may be a little bit. Yeah, that makes sense. That's also why I know that Nordic ants, he had to go in and manually open the first worker to help them get along. In a video he did many years ago, which was a very cool video. But I cannot recommend trying to open a pupae. It is very hard to do it. But yeah, we don't really have it.
How do you even like start opening a pupae? Like they're so tiny.
Well, what I do, I've done it a few times. 50-50 success rate. You need to the thing is, you need to get in and puncture the shell so you can go in. Now the ant is located so actually between the head and the gaster, so in the middle part, there's a lot of air, and if you go in from that, you can unpack it. So I've done it. So I've tried it before, where you can go in from the side and you can actually take it around the ant and take it off. But the problem is, it's not really poking and opening. But the problem is when you have to unpack it around the worker, that's when you can often do a lot of damage. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it if you depend on it at least. But yeah, I don't know if you
much too like fiddly for me.
Yeah, it definitely isn't easy. I did it because I had to. I tried adding Nicovorensis. I tried adding Nicovorensis brood to my Singularis colony at one point to see if that would help, and I had to open them because they wouldn't open the cocoons, and I could see that they were starting to get gray. So I had to go in and manually open it. But the funny thing was when they actually woke up, but the Singularis workers wouldn't lick them. So they were just they were laying in the slime, and the legs couldn't really work because it was like they needed the workers to go in and kind of lick the slime away from them, and that's why they sadly didn't make it. So I had to unbox them or enclose them for no reason. But that's how it is. Lynn, you're an experienced antkeeper. Is that anything you've tried?
Opening pupae?
Yeah.
Many times, yeah. Not always successfully, sadly.
So what's your method?
I think the first time I accidentally squashed the worker because they are very soft when they're in the pupae. So I prefer naked pupae if I have them. I use my soft touch tweezers and I carefully place them somewhere that I can see them very good. So like on my phone because my phone is black. Depends on the color of the worker, of course. And then I try to, because I have multiple of the soft touch tweezers, I just try to like rip open the pupae and to try to just drag the worker out by the head or gaster. Usually the head, because the head is a little bit sturdier than the gaster. But I usually have problems with them waking up after I take them out of the pupae, so that's a bit
right
of a
away.
thing. No, they don't wake up.
Oh, they don't wake up, yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit of it always happened that they don't really wake up when I open them manually.
No, it's funny. I at one point recorded a Nicovorensis worker being opened, and all the workers did all of their job cutting up and opening it all. I've made a YouTube video. It's called Life of an Ant, featuring my Nicovorensis. But what was interesting, because I sat there for half an hour following it, and I think the entire shell was gone before the worker had its first movement. So I think the workers react on them being licked and actually woken up by the saliva or the ants actually going in and moving around. Because again, when I had my Singularis, which I tried feeding or giving these Rinses workers to, I also had the same problem that they weren't waking up. So I tried to go in and take their arms or their legs up and down, kind of wake them up, and it actually worked. But the problem was that they still had this slime, so they tried to move it around every time. Every time I helped them, they woke up, but they could not pull their legs apart because there was this slimy thing, which I could not remove. So yeah, it was sadly a failed experiment. But I think that's it for today's episode. I mean, the thing is, it would be lovely to have had Ants Netherlands on because he's a lot more knowledgeable. But we can save that for a future episode. Guys, do you have anything more to add on today's topic? Starting with you, Jake.
No, not really. I guess we covered everything we know, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind a recap in the future if you can get Ants Netherlands on. No, again, like I think we'd all appreciate learning some more.
Yeah, the problem is we're not clever enough. We don't know enough about them. If there's anyone out listening who have some massive colonies successfully and started them, you know what? It just hit me. Back when we searched for new host, a guy contacted me saying he had a massive colony of Rufa that he had started and he lived in Sweden, I think. Oh, I just remembered that now. I should have contacted him. Yeah, that's how it is. Casey, do you have any final words regarding today's topic?
If you do decide to try it, good luck. And we do have Lasius neoniger and Lasius umbratus, so if you want to go that route, you can do that. And there is an abundant amount of Formica. Good luck IDing them. But yeah, that's all I got.
All right, and what about you, Lynn? Any final words on today's topic?
If you're looking for Lasius niger brood, another tip I have is over here we have the bags to put in the trash bin are black. So if you make like a coat on close to where the colony is, and you press those down with like the corners, you press them down so they can walk under it. They will put their brood under it because it's nice and warm and toasty when the sun is on there. And then you can just easily grab the pupae later, like an hour later or so. But be aware that when you go hunting for broods, don't accidentally grab a late brood. Those are bigger broods, so don't grab drones and don't grab queens because those are useless.
And how can you see the difference?
With the queenulates, it's very easy from Lasius niger because they have giant pupae, but the drones are actually pretty hard to see. They are a bit longer in shape when you put them next to regular pupae, but you need to have two different types of pupae to be able to see. Otherwise, it can be pretty hard to see. If you need help, you can always contact me.
Yeah, and I think if you just grab a good pile, hopefully you will get a few of each. Worst case, you will get one of each at least. So, it is time for this week's Ant News. Now, I don't know about you guys. I feel like hibernation is definitely ending. There's a lot of guys waking up. Is there anything special that have happened this past week? I'm not so sure. I don't know, guys, if you have anything special happen in your own ant keeping room.
I've recently noticed a massive uptick in brood for everything, but especially the Manica rubida, who already kind of blew me away with the amount of brood, but it's still coming, and the pile of kind of larvae it's getting huge, and I'm very excited about that. I think it's spring though. Now it's come along. They're like in full gear now, whatever, full speed.
And they weren't hibernated, weren't they?
No, they weren't hibernated. But yeah, I think they kind of did hibernate still though, because it slowed down to maybe like 10 brood all together for a bit, But yeah, now it's popping off again.
Let's hope they haven't entered what's some kind of weird hibernation curse at least.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah. What about you, Casey?
Same as antimatters. My all my colonies have brood. My main colony of Formica that I've been talking to you guys about, that I've been super excited about, is blowing up. But my second colony of Formica are starting to catch up, and that's also got me very excited.
Alrighty. Hang on. Who? So we talked about the Cephalotus experiment every episode. Was it you, Jake? We also talked about you had a new queen or something, right? I can't remember.
Oh, the Aragon's queen. Yeah,
oh,
the
yes, that's how
Aragons.
it. That's how it is.
She's currently still alive and hasn't lost a single worker, which is pretty good in my books. And she does seem to have laid about 6 eggs, so things are looking really good on the Aragans front.
Alrighty. And lastly, Lynn, how any ant updates and how's the Cephalotus?
Well, the Mesocephalotus is still alive.
Oh.
I did see her on her back one time again, and I pushed her over again, or rolled the tube around, and she was upright again. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's grip, that she just doesn't have grip in the tube, or if she's just resting and she falls over and she can't get up. I'm not sure, but she's still alive and kicking, so that's very nice.
Are there any big Cephalotus colonies out there? In
Ooh,
captivity?
Yeah, there's a giant one on YouTube.
So I'm just wondering whether it's not good to have them in test tubes regarding the queen. I mean, if the colonies manage to do well, that's good. But if the queen is better off in a nest, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I know Adam's Ends. Is that his name on here as well? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He has this beautiful custom-made nest type of thing that looks a little bit like flat tar heel ant nest, because it has the substrates on the inside. And his colony does really well inside of that.
I'll have to find him and look for that afterwards. All right. So finally, I just thought of one thing. Casey, we need to follow your that now. Okay. Okay, so is that the guy with the massive colony?
No. Wait. I have the massive colony guy also on here.
All right, Lynn sent a video with a colony with 7 workers, for those wondering. So yeah, Casey, we need to get a colony for you to follow as well, because I can now say that I've thought that I had the bull ant now, so we can also follow the bull ant. And the bull ant status is we have 1 cocoon, no eggs, and the queen is no longer hunting, but yeah, I am feeding her, and I can see that she is dragging the food home and putting it out again. But I'm disturbing her as little as possible to make sure that nothing happens. But yeah, 1 cocoon, 0 eggs. Let's hope it lasts. Alright, so that is a little bit of a bigger colony, I can see that. They're just living in one massive tank.
Now that's like one part of the setup. That's the outworld, which they also use as a nest.
Hopefully this summer I'll get some pots that we can follow.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of that curse. That is terrible. It's worse than a Campo curse, for sure.
Yeah, the honeypot curse. Yeah, Jake, are you planning on getting them, Jake? Because I know I'm planning on getting honeypots this year as well.
I'll keep an eye on them at AntCon, to be fair. If there's some at AntCon, I'll probably leave with some honeypots. But I'm trying to behave and not get too many. However, they are such beautiful ants, and they don't get ridiculously huge. So I think I could definitely fit them in somewhere.
All right. What about you, Lynn? Are you looking for honeypots this year?
I think I'm gonna fight with Jake during the AntCon. The only benefit I have is that I have a whole bunch of mini hearts that I can use for them. So nice.
Oh. Yeah, I'm currently awaiting a mini heart as well. And Bay from Instagram, if you know that guy, he was like, "Would you like a mini hearth?" And I'm like, "Dude, I've been wanting a mini hearth since forever." Oh, yeah, it's gonna be nice to do the proper honeypot treatment once that all happens. But yeah, guys, I think we have covered everything. I mean, I would have liked it to be a little bit more detailed, but without Mr. Netherlands, it's a little bit hard to go above our knowledge. But I hope you guys have enjoyed listening in. This has been a debate about slave maker ant, or also known as parasitic ants. Thank you for listening in. The Antpod releases new episodes every Wednesday. And care, guys, I want to say every few weeks, but let's be honest, every few months. I think it's more appropriate. If there's a topic you would like to hear about, please send a message to the Antpod Instagram. With that, you will hear more from us at the Antpod next week.